Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, got a video, I'm going to do another video here working on the combine. Now you're probably wondering, what are you doing working on the combine here at the beginning of June? Well, I was hoping that today I could actually be out spraying, but we've had some rains that stopped us. But I think today's June 5th, if I remember right. But want to use the R72 here for some wheat again this summer, because the field where we have wheat, it's about 45 acres, and the way Dad and I are thinking, we're not going to need all that into straw coming out of the back of the M3 off the walker machine. And so going to get the 72 here set up. So I'm going to do a video showing how I set it up for wheat, which is actually very similar to soybeans. But I will be linking this video onto some Gleaner Combine Facebook groups that I'm on, as well as probably a couple Alice Chalmers pages as well. So that's why I'm doing this video. But I'll grab some wrenches here and we'll get started. Alright, what I generally do for switching between beans and corn or wheat, but I'll just start up here on the left hand side and work my way around, come up the right hand side. And there is something that I do change here on the feeder house for height adjustment, which I never used to until I begin to notice that when we get in the dry corn, I think part of it was the feeder chain kind of wanting to crack the corn. But I'll show you that here a little later on once I get back around up here to the front again. But right here we got the feeder house chain speed control lock. And so you're going to take and loosen up these 3 bolts. They sit in a triangle, so there's one right back there. Let's see if I can get you mounted somewhere here on the side. Alright, I think you can see halfway decent right there. Get my light sitting up in there somewhere. Or, there we go. So just I'm going to take a 3/4 inch wrench, loosen all 3 of these up, and you'll turn that plate, and that'll take and it'll lock that down so your feeder house cannot speed up like in corn, for example. Undo that back one. There we go. Okay, now I'll take you here up back off the side. All right, once you get that undone, you can turn that, and it's going to cover these bolt heads up like that. Now you see how it's got that covered up, and now it can't move. It's locked down. Then just you can tighten up your 3 bolts, and that's got this part. Alright, we got the pinch ring back there tightened up. Another thing you're going to do is unhook this hose. That's what controls that cylinder right there. And I have actually rebuilt that thing. And just a heads up, if you ever pull this assembly out on an R62 or an R72, that thing's very heavy. And so I use the forklift. But if you have single point hookup, like what we got right here, because this hose also activates the reel height on your bean head, just clip it on right there. Now, if you do not have single point, your hose, there we go, will hook directly to the back of the bean head. And so, which will be up this way. But I actually added single point to this machine, this piece right here, when we bought the combine in 2018, because it did not have it, but the bean head right there already had its half of the single point. So I put it on this machine here also. It's a whole lot nicer. Okay, next thing we're going to work on is the chopper back here. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is switch the chopper from low speed, where it's at right now, down here on this small pulley, to high speed. Like I said, the combine is set up for corn from last fall. And so to do that, you see that belt tensioner hole right there? Take and put a pry bar in that. Now that way you can take and pull the tensioner over, and you'll take the belt off this pulley right here, and then it'll just come straight from this pulley down here to the drive and around, and that'll be up on high speed. Okay, got my pry bar, put in the tensioner, shove the pry bar forward like that, pop it off that belt. Ew! Well, that ain't good. Then let back off the tensioner. Okay, now we're tight again. However, let me get you down off the wall. That ain't good. If I remember, I think I've got a new chopper belt on hand. Well, besides a giant face full of dust, well, we may just have to go ahead and put a new chopper belt on this thing. Hadn't planned on it, but hey, it's kind of a rainy day, so maybe I'll come back to that. Let's get the rest of the machine set up first. Next thing you're going to do is put the knives up into the chopper, which is right here. Alright, I think you can see that up there. But take and loosen up these bolts, 2 carriage bolts. Give you a heads up when you're doing this, don't be surprised when you get a bunch of dirt falling down your face. Okay, now that those are loosened up, you're going to take a pry bar and put right up in here. And begin to work those up like that. There we go. And there goes the dirt down. Alright, that's got the knife shoved in. And then just the opposite, take and tighten that up like that, and that'll have it. And the same thing over here. Well, it would help if I went the right way. Alrighty, chopper knives are in. Next thing you want to do, we just got done at the chopper right there, now I'm up here behind the motor, is increase the straw spreader speed. Now, if you have a newer machine, like an R75 or something like that, or on up to, into your S series, your straw spreader speed is actually hydraulic run, but this here still has the belt. Even though this machine here is actually right at the end of the last R72 built. It's actually number 28, come to think of it, according to the serial number. But take your belt off that pulley, and up here on the drive, try and get it to pop off there. There we go. In fact, generally I'll take it clear off. And the same thing right there, because you got an upper pulley here too, then one right here. And then in order to hold this spring up that I'm actually standing on right there, I'll take and throw a board underneath it like that, let it sit there. Now if you have somebody down there to flip it, just hold it up down here and have somebody change the belt down there on the bottom pulley. But if you don't, just use the board and hold it up. So now we'll hop down there and change that one. All right, back down here on the side. Try not to block my light too bad. And here's your drive pulley. So you'll take, it's a double, so you got your small inside, then bigger on the outside. Put that there on the big one. And then go back up here, or actually climb back up into the engine compartment and swap it over. Go ahead and move your board back out of the way. And that belt got stuck down in there. There we go. This is easier to do when you can use two hands and not have to hold a camera with the other. Okay, that's got it on the big pulley up here. Then take and put the bottom of the belt. Oh, no wonder why. It would help if I got the belt on the right pulley. It goes on the small side up here because this is the driven. There we go. Get it on your right pulleys right here, or idlers actually. Then let your foot back up. Okay. Now we're on that. Yeah, don't try and put it on the big one up here. Put it on the small one. It's not going to turn as fast. And so, all right, that's got that one. Now we'll move on down around onto the right hand side. Okay, just thought I'd show you right quick. Something I did here on the straw spreader, here a couple years ago now. Had a friend of mine make up a regular full-size spreader pan. In fact, I think this is actually 3 feet across diameter. Looking up from the bottom of it, you can see how big it is. And that really helps. You can see right here in your paddle, this here is how far out from center the old spreader pan came. And of course it went from this one around on over to here to that hole and on all the way around, of course. But I took that off, and like I say, had a friend of mine who does welding and that kind of stuff. I had him cut this big circle out for me, and where it now comes clear out here to the end of the paddle. And what that does, whereas before, when you have all your trash and debris coming down here, when the pan stops right here, stuff is still going to be falling through your paddles. Even though they're spinning, it's still going to be dropping stuff through. Whereas here, it catches everything and throws it. And so that's really helped, especially in beans and that kind of stuff for spreading out debris. Because with 35-foot bean head, you got a lot of trash and that kind of stuff coming in and going out the back, and that worked out great. Okay, now I'll show you some stuff over here on the right hand side. Okay, here on the right hand side, there's, besides the gear shift here on the transmission for the rotor, there's not really anything else to do except for up there on the right hand side of the throat. And so, maybe I can kind of sit you up on the clean grain elevator. But you're just taking, you may kind of rock the pulley back and forth. There we go. Okay, now we're in high speed. And like I say, you may kind of rock the main pulley here back and forth a little bit to get the shift easily up in the transmission. Okay. Now we're ready to come up here on the right hand side. Got a change of belt sitting right here, and I'll show you some things here on the feeder house. Alright, Alrighty, here on the right hand side of the throat, take this cover here off. Get that out of the way. And then right here, got a spring tensioner. Gotta loosen that up. Take 2 3/4 inches and loosen up those double jam nuts. Just need to take and make a longer deep well socket. Alright, we'll get this loosened up and change that belt over. Okay, got that spun all the way up to the top of that tensioner there. So that's got the belt good and loose. Take it down off that idler. There we go. Alright, I usually take and pop it off this bottom pulley. That gives you more room to work with up in here. Then move it from the big one to the inside on the small one. And that takes and speeds up your feeder house. And there you can see it better with the light. This drops off that big one, goes down the small one on the inside. And same thing down here, go on the big one. Then back up onto the tensioner. Got to use both hands. There we go. Like that. Okay. And the same thing. Now I'll take the wrench and run that back down. Well, with the impact as much as possible. Okay, and I just take and run that washer. There's a tab right there that you can either bring it down to that or just above it. But as long as that belt's good and tight, you're good to go. All right, got that tightened back up. Double jam nuts locked back together, so we're good to go on that. Now this here also has these adjuster blocks here for your feeder house chain. Right now it's in the corn position, and if you can see that, it says corn, and now you can sort of see that right there, it says grain front, because these blocks are actually used on both the front front feeder house and the upper feeder house that sits right behind where the throat pivots going up to the rotor. And if you're going to be adjusting the ones up there on the upper rotor feeder house, you would be going by where it says grain rear. And you would put this side up, but since we're here on the front feeder house, we're going to go with grain front and put this side up. And what that does is it allows the feeder house to float up higher off the floor for small grain like soybeans, wheat, rye, that kind of stuff. I never used to change those until here a couple of years ago in dry corn. I began to notice it's kind of when it cracked the corn, and I think it's because it was too tight right here, and the feeder house was riding up on the corn, and the corn was carrying a lot more weight from the feeder house chain getting into it. And so now I switched that over to corn. That way the blocks actually help hold up a lot of that weight. Now I do not adjust the upper feeder house chain. Those I do not, I actually leave those in the grain position because I have put the Dan Hurt feeder floor kit in this machine, and the lower well, it would be the lower drum of the upper feeder house that sits, like I say, right back in here behind where the throat pivot is. That actually has a 7-inch drum compared to this one up here. That's an 8, and so that's why I do not adjust those blocks, because the drum's smaller, and so it's got a lot more room in there to work. Now, if you do not have the 7-inch drum or the Dan Hurt feeder floor kit, I would highly suggest either putting it in or having someone install it, because it'll make a night and day difference. Okay, I'll get some wrenches and show you how to start getting these here swapped around. And the first thing you want to do is take these little shock absorbers off. I wish I could leave them on, but you can't. But it's not that big a deal to take them out. Get a little lock nut off there. And down here you got a little bolt. There we go. What this shock absorber does is it keeps this piece here from wanting to bounce. Okay, there we go. All right, got the shock off. Now you're going to want to take a 15/16 deep well, pop over that. Get your ratchet. I throw an extension on, that way it gets it farther away from the throat. There we go. Get that broke loose. Now, let me show you. Once you get this here loosened up, you're going to want to take and put a pry bar in here. That way you can pry up, and you can see it right there, how we're moving that up and down. You'll want to pick up on that and get the weight off that square block. And you can see how I'm moving that up and down right there. Okay, I just picked up on the pry bar. Gonna spin this out, and right behind that block there are flat washers. Don't let those go flying out of there, otherwise you gotta find them and put them back in. But if you can do it without taking this bolt completely out, do it. Okay, there we go, grained front. Now push that back in and lower that back down. Like I say, if you can do that without spinning this here completely out of the, I think there's actually a big welded nut on the inside. Don't take this piece here clear out. That way your washers don't go flying everywhere. And then just take and spin this back in. But yeah, now see how much more float room you got right there? And that's what you want for soybeans, wheat, rye, that kind of stuff. In fact, I don't know if you... Actually, here's a good example. You can see over there how much closer it is to the floor right here compared to over here. You got a lot more room, because I've got to adjust this side over here, and so the whole thing is sitting there kind of crooked right now. It's the same thing, just take and tighten it back up, pull it down good and tight. There we go. And now we're ready to put the shock absorber back on. Put that on, let the back end drop down, and get that bolt lined up down there on the bottom. And in fact, we used to have a, no, it was a 1996 R72, and these shock absorbers had actually been added onto it because one of these holes had gotten broke out, and somebody, the previous owner or somebody had reinforced it because it was bouncing up and down. So these shock absorbers, these are actually from the factory. Alright, then put the lock nut on right here, and that's got it. And the left hand side is the exact same way. Alright, that's got one side adjusted, and now we're ready to move over here, do the exact same thing. Okay, now we're over here on the left side. I've already taken this panel cover here off, and like I say, it's the exact same thing. Right there's your shock absorber, and I'm not going to show everything on this, just want to show it to you, that way you can see it, but it's all identical. So I'll get this swapped over, and same thing here on the block. Grain front, and so this piece here will be going up on top, and this here will be going to the back, on the back side. Alright, that's got this side over here done. Just got done with it, and you can see, flipped around, grain front. There's the word corn on the back. So we're good to go there. And just give you a little example, I just showed you how we were up on this side, and now you can see it's a lot closer to the floor. So now we're ready to roll. Alright guys, well, I'm going to call this an end of the video. I had thought about including replacing that chopper belt. However, I think I may actually just end up making that a video of its own, because that's going to take a while. But hey, that's how you set up a Gleaner combine for wheat, or you do the same thing going from corn to soybeans, and or just vice versa, from soybeans back to corn. And but yeah, and so like I say, I'm going to be linking this on some Gleaner and Alice Chalmers Facebook groups that I'm on. And so because I usually get quite a few questions from guys about, you know, like setting up and that kind of stuff. Also rotor clearance, I actually run that at 0, and so about an 1/8 inch clearance is what I run, so I run it down pretty tight. But that works great for rye, and also for doing wheat. So hey, take care, thanks a lot for watching, we'll see you next time.